Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Those Who Hope podcast. I'm very excited to be joined today by a very good friend of mine, my bro, Henry Leigh-Hunt.
Come on, sis.
Woo!
Oh, we're going by my stage name.
I have introduced you as your stage name, but we can have both names.
It's all right. Well, if I get taken to court, no one will ever know. You
No.
don't know my legal name. So,
we want to know your legal name now. Actually, I'm trying to think if I can remember it.
This is when... Oh, I thought you were a good friend of mine.
No.
No, but a lot of people say that. They're like, oh, what's your actual name?
Well, yeah, I'm used to hearing
Okay,
Henry
Leigh-Hunt. Back in the day when I got picked on at school, people used to call me Henry Cotton, because it was, well, my actual name is a word similar to that. It's a material. Smooth and...
I don't know what it is.
Silky.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, I did know that. Henry Silk, that's what your name is in my phone.
Oh, is it?
It is.
There you go.
But do you know, I have a confession. I only just saved your number into my phone like yesterday. Because
oh no! My world's crumbling.
No, it's not anything bad. It's because, on WhatsApp, like you'll have someone's number, but like if because all the things we're on in like group chats and stuff, I can see your name, Henry, but I didn't actually just click into my phone Henry because I always WhatsApp you.
Okay.
So then, like, if I do this to so many people, I'll like go to message you and I would just type in Henry, for example, and then it just comes up with your number. It wasn't until I needed to add you to a group chat. Are you
telling me that on all the group chats we're in, you could just see like +4407 or 07 or whatever?
So then it says
oh
Henry.
No, that's really sad. Oh well, hey.
No, I do that for loads of people. I'm sorry.
At least it's saved now. It's right.
It is.
You've been Katrina on my phone for ages, but there you go. I mean, whatever.
Sorry.
That's right. Do you know what?
I must have it for loads of friends.
You confessed and I forgive you.
That's it. And if we confess, he is just to forgive us, and Henry is following suit.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
That's all good. Hilarious.
But you can honestly, sis, you can call me what you want on this podcast.
Okay. Well, let's let our audience choose. So, listeners, if you're listening or if you're watching, you vote. Are we going by Henry Leigh-Hunt or Henry Silk? Ooh, that is the question. Yeah. So we haven't even introduced who you are, but we have a stage name. So I'm guessing you might be an actor. Is that correct?
Yeah. That is my I guess, professional name, equity name, whatever. Mm-hmm. When I went to, I guess, when people go through drama school and you don't have to go to drama school to do this, but if you like join equity or spotlight, there's that thing of like, do I, if my name's already been taken, if my legal name's already been taken, you usually have to change it. That Henry Silk wasn't taken, but I did change it anyway. I changed it because my mum's side of the family, it's her maiden name, and quite a few family members on her side were in the showbiz, in the performing arts world. So, and were actors and dancers and stuff, and singers. So
that's
awesome. Where it's from.
Keep the name going.
That's where it's from. Yeah. Actually, I don't want to like brag or anything or name drop, but
get straight in there.
If you go, I'm not that I've ever been on Who Do You Think You Are, but if I were to, well, I'm not going to, but I think you can go for, I think Leigh-Hunt, it comes from the second wave romantic poet of the same name, who was mates with like Byron and Keats and Shelley and that lot. The guy who was married to Mary Shelley who wrote Frankenstein.
Way.
Yeah. So that's actually where it's from, and then it's just and then it's just sort of gone down the generations. So I don't know where the exact connection is, but there you go.
Wow. So it's a name of the arts.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get on to, I think we should put a couple more name drops in this pod. Yeah. But let's keep people waiting for it, because you got to stay listening to us.
Yeah. But no, that's the funny thing with names, professional names, because you just assume, don't you, people in that kind of world, that's their actual name. But like there are a couple, like for example, like Graham Norton, not his real name.
Really?
His real name's Graham Walker.
No.
But his name was taken, hence changing it.
Yeah, because for people that don't know what equity and spotlight is, so equity is basically like an actors union, and they provide support and other things too. But you can get your stage name on there, so you can claim your name, so that if somebody is talking about actress Katrina Markham.
There we go. The OG.
Because, you know, everybody is clearly, no. Not at all. But if that's why they do it, though, isn't it? So that they know who you're referring to in the industry.
It's
If
like
you
your business
mention,
name, you've claimed
it. So like you won't get confused between two separate people.
If you just come out of drama school and you want to be Benedict Cumberbatch, guess what? You can't, because that name's already taken.
He's got that one.
Yeah, but like another one quickly. David Tennant, not his real name.
Really?
Not his real name. David McDonald's his real name. And I heard on an interview once, he was going through like back in the day, like a popular like fan magazine or whatever, comes across, do you know of the Pet Shop Boys?
Yes, I've heard of them.
A guy called Neil Tennant came across that. David Tennant looks at it, knows that he can't use David McDonald's, and he goes, I quite like that. Like, David Tennant, like, yeah. And that's
no, he just copied it.
Yeah. Well, that's where he got Tennant from. Because usually, so like for me, I've taken my mum's maiden name, like, I know Henry Leigh-Hunt, like, ugh. But actually, it's a valid reason, because, I mean, I guess it sounds okay, but like, I've taken it because it's my mum's maiden name. But like for him, he just happened to come across it.
But it does sound great,
that's what a lot of people do. Like, they will just, I mean, so for example, Richard Melian from It As Well, the show we're both in, his name's Edwards, and that was taken. So I think Melian's from where he was based down in Cornwall, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It was a little town.
So there you go. So people often do that. So,
that is so interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, like the second one of the day, I was sitting back there for Anna Unwins, and I was that audience member in the room doing this that you mentioned. But yeah, honestly, just so encouraging, so good to hear.
Yeah.
I had to hold myself back from saying amen like every few minutes. Like, it's mad.
Oh, yeah. It was great having a studio audience today. Yes. And we are pumped because we recorded that episode with Anna and it was just so powerful. So if you haven't already listened to it, I think it will be published by now. So go and listen to it. And we had a lovely lunch as well, didn't we?
We did. What's the name of the bakery?
Shout out to Godfrey's Bakery.
Godfrey, come on. That your brother Eddie went to collect the goods.
Yeah.
Had a lovely little coronation sandwich, bap, roll. It was great.
Well, enough about food.
Sorry.
Should
we talk about spiritual food or something else?
Oh, yeah. Spitting facts. So basically, Henry, I would love for you to help us get to know you a little bit. So we've mentioned that you are an actor and we're both in the show It Is Well With My Soul. So if you've listened to episode 2, I spoke to Gareth Hydes, who wrote the show It Is Well With My Soul, and we are both in the show, aren't we? So you play Horatio Spafford. And we spoke in the episode with Gareth. If you've listened, you might be familiar of Horatio Spafford wrote the lyrics to the song It Is Well With My Soul. And Philip Bliss, who is my husband in the show, wrote the music. Yeah. So what is it like playing Horatio Spafford?
Oh, well, it's a whole thing, I guess, which kind of ties into what we're, I think one of your questions was like, how do we meet and stuff. But yeah, just like the whole... It As Well family and the journey of that. I mean, really, it's since last February, wasn't it? So yeah, but no, great. Like, I remember, the whole way it kind of came about. I met Gareth, who's I consider as one of my closest friends, through a couple of mates of mine who are also really good friends from my church in London, who do a lot of evangelism, street evangelism with him, and I've worked with him before. And he goes to a church, not the same church as me, but in South Hamwell. I happened to see a gospel concert that he was doing. I was living with my pastor at the time and one of my mates, who's a professional rapper. I'm sure I can plug some of his stuff, but we'll be plugging loads of music. But I just met him through him, and we just went to this gig that Gareth was doing for free. So that's when I first met him, and he mentioned at the time that he was doing or writing a musical. I think this was like October.
I saw that tour. I saw him in Forest Gate.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Not far from it. Yeah. So that's when I first heard about it, and then another of those mates messaged me about just this role that had come up within the show. It was actually for the part of D.L. Moody, who Richard plays, but he just approached me about that, and then found that Richard was obviously, he's got such an amazing voice and he was really well suited to it, and Rich got offered that, and I wasn't right for that, but just basically the guy Martin producing the show supporting Gareth through that. Just said, hey Gareth, like what if someone goes down or anything, or what, you haven't got any understudies? So initially I was brought in as like an understudy, and then Gareth was like, do you know what, because Gareth, what a guy, took me out to lunch at a local pub and we chatted about it. And I was talking to him about like my heart for wanting to still do acting, but kind of like a lot of what Anna said, like I really wanted to do it, but I was working for my church at the time, and I was like, oh God, what is your will? Like, how do you want me to go about this? Do you want me to, in what ways do you want me to, like use any kind of skills or passions that you've kind of given me? And I was just talking about like what I'd done through like my Christian union at uni and what I'd done through church and how my faith was kind of growing. And Gareth he initially rung me up when I was at church after and was like, Henry, I just don't think you're right for the role. I was like, firstly, fair enough.
Is that for Horatio?
No, for D.L. Moody. I was like, like fair enough. Like that's totally fine. And I was like, like he's not, that's it. Like this would have been so cool, but he's just gonna tell me it's not right, and say sorry, but thanks anyway. I was like, I was sort of ready to just put the phone down. But then Gareth was like, but what if you not only came as an understudy, but played one of the other roles that he had, which was the Spafford role. So that's sort of how it came about. But to actually answer your question, it's great playing that part. I think obviously the focus is on Philip Bliss and Philip and Lucy Bliss and their journey, and how their faith is challenged a lot. Same with Horatio and Anna Spafford as well, and not to spoil anything, but the different tragedies the musical kind of explores. And but no, it's great play. And like when we had that workshop in February, I remember them asking me, they did a little interview and they like asked me questions about, what is it like to play Horatio? Basically what you've just asked me. And at the time, I literally just been given the script. Yeah. And obviously Gareth had given me like some background to it, but it was very kind of fresh in my mind. And I only knew so much. So I kind of was a bit sort of put on the spot and kind of like blabbered my way through. But rather than making anything up, I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to be completely honest. I literally found out about, I said this like on tape. I was like, I literally found out about this a couple of days ago. I'm not going to lie. I was just honest. But no, like now, obviously, having done, the couple tours we've done so far, it's a real privilege. And obviously great to play that and to be part of the company. But I think first and foremost, as you'd probably agree, just the blessing it is to be part of that show, to know why we're doing it first and foremost, to make Jesus known, to spread the gospel message, but to do that through a true story. Like I think a lot of Christians would look at it, would watch it and go, you're like, there's a lot of obviously scripture we get in and a lot of like truth that the characters say. And it's like, some people might think, like, are you just sort of forcing it on people? Well, no, we're not. Like, we are very direct with the message. But to be honest, it's told through the lens of like real life, like what did happen. And Gareth has obviously done loads of research into it. He's read, honestly, the amount of books that man reads and the stuff he takes in to help him form the way he writes it and the songs and everything. But it's just so great. And obviously the things that doing the show, meeting you guys, meeting Gareth has all led to. It's been great. So, but I mean, I'm just excited to see like what will happen going forward with the show. The blessing it will be for the audiences, and also just touring it, just taking it around like up and down the country, and who knows what God will do with it. So.
Yeah, which is so exciting. And I love what you said there about how it is true life and it's so accessible, because I've got a real heart for things not feeling like closed doors to people that don't have the same faith as me. Do you know what I mean? Like anything I do that's faith-based, I'm like, this isn't just for Christians to enjoy. I want anyone to be able to watch this and be blessed by it, and for it to, have an impact on them. And I think that because it is a true story, that people, because I've had a lot of friends who don't share the same faith as me, but they've come to see it and they've just been inspired by these people's lives, just watching what their life was like. And I mean, I love a true story as well. I love being inspired by real people, and I suppose that's what this podcast is about as well. And and I spoke to Gareth about this, how even though their lives are in the 19th century, there's still so much we can relate to as humans, and the human condition is very much the same. And I'm really inspired by it, and I love your role. Horatio plays such a key role in the show, and you do it so well, like so well. And it's been amazing to kind of meet. I suppose, when did we meet? It was like, when was that?
It was that February, like mid-February.
So nearly a year ago.
Yeah, that's
wow. How did that happen?
That was so nice though. Like, where we went, was it?
It was
Chesham, where we were.
Yeah, in Chesham. Yeah. It was a really lovely place, really lovely venue where we did the workshop day, and that was the start of many things to come.
That was mad.
And it's been amazing to see you on this journey too, because when I met you, I was introduced to Henry, who went to a drama studio. Is that correct? That was where you so you went to uni in Birmingham, right? Was that the University of Birmingham?
University of UOB.
And what was your degree in?
It was, guess what? Drama and theatre arts.
Whoa!
I know. Yeah, literally.
And then what happened after that?
What happened after that? Well, graduated in 2020. Then this, obviously, great year. This thing called COVID came along. At the time, I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, I was doing my dissertation. I was like, do you know what? Being obviously in retrospect, now I obviously see, but at the time I was like, great, like no distractions or anything. I can just crack on with this, knuckle down, stay at home, no problem, and it won't last that long. Little did I know. I thought I'd be over by like, the summer or whatever. When the summer comes around and I've graduated, I'm like, oh, I've got to get a job. Oh wait. Like that was obviously it was a tricky time for everyone, obviously, and there was, I know lots of people went through like far worse things than I did, but just sort of being at home and trying to, at the time, I'm trying to think, it was for a few months I worked for a call center for a market research agency.
Ooh,
I know,
bougie.
Great, honestly. It was obviously it was not what I was hoping to do, but it was fine. Did that from home for a few months, and then praise the Lord, when the schools partially opened, I worked as like an academic mentor. The government kind of had a kind of COVID catch-up fund where they basically used that to send out graduates into local schools with, children who were underperforming as a result of being at home and missing out on so much school, or just being affected by that. So that was great. Did a bit of English and maths tutoring. Ran a drama club after school for reception to year 5. I co-directed a bit of the year 6 end of year play. So it was great. I'm not going to pretend that, obviously there were times where I had to self-isolate and whatever, but it was good. That was a good time. So that kind of, because initially I was like, obviously finished drama school, want to ideally go off and do acting and get an agent and whatnot, but actually just to add another string to your bow in teaching, I'd done bits of tutoring before. Quite enjoy working with young people, kids, young adults. Done that a lot with like church as well, with those kind of ministries. So didn't want to necessarily teach permanently or long term, but thought, like I've done that, and that's a really good experience. And I felt like, given we were all in the situation we were in, just with the climate and stuff, like it was a good thing to do. So there was that, and then when it came to doing drama school, I was fortunate. I know you were probably you're obviously at home for bits of that. But I was lucky. We had to do obviously loads of COVID testing and whatnot. And
so when did you start drama studio?
Here we go. 2021.
Okay, so it was still like during some
21
of it.
to 22. It was only for a year. So I did 3 years at Birmingham, and obviously kind of took that stopgap year, and then a 1 year post grad. And I think it would have been great to have done 3 years. But I did the 1 year. And to be fair, like DSL, it's a really, they've changed it to an MA now, but it was basically a postgrad diploma. Which was good because it was just purely vocational. Like it's great what all drama schools do, but to make it more accessible, they make them into degrees, which is fine, but they have to tick boxes when you like doing bits of academic work.
Right. What now that it's an MA?
Yeah. And that's what the majority of schools do. But DSL, the final year before it changed, was the year I did. And I did like 8 shows in a year. It was great.
That's amazing.
And the good thing as well with DSL, they have a lot of directors externally, who come in, so who are working in the industry. So had a really good director who was working at the Royal Shakespeare Company. RSC came in to direct.
Amazing.
So yeah, like there are pros and cons, because like sometimes some directors can be like, oh, I've got to go out and do this job, sorry, got to leave. But on the whole, it's great. Like it's really, really good to have their kind of first-hand experience. You could be working with anyone, so that was a real bonus. So yeah, really good. I mean, it was very intense, and I think ideally, I mean, hey, if we want some top tips, a top tip, if you're thinking uni or drama school, I think you can do both. That's what I did. I think if you are making that decision, ideally choose one or the other, because university, Birmingham was great. They're a bit more in favour of you going to do like postgrad training. But most unis, I think they'd agree with this, would say, if you want to act, go to drama school. But there's no reason why you can't have that academic grounding like I did and then go and do it later on. Absolutely no reason why, and people have done that. But I think, the 1 year was great, really good.
And I think that just shows as well, there are so many ways to do it. I think drama school isn't the be all and end all. It is helpful for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean that you're stuck if you didn't go or if you're not going.
I mean, we're obviously only talking. There are exceptions, but you look at. There's one off the top of my head, like Jodie Comer, like she never went to drama school. Vanessa Kirby never went to drama. They're just examples, right? But I think I'd if you were saying do I or don't I would recommend, just to get that kind of core foundational training that you're going to be able to carry forward with you for the rest of your career, the rest of your life. And like some people can have a problem. I know some people are quite staunch sort of anti-drama school, which is fine, and they've had really successful careers and it hasn't mattered at all. But yeah, like I think it's just good to have that, the teachers do know what they're talking about. Some people are like, oh, they're quite wedded to their own philosophies and stuff. But I think I think the pros outweigh the cons.
And I think it's like whatever training you do, just do it from a trusted source, I guess. Like even through it as well. Our director is so amazing. And one of them is now my acting coach.
Come on. I think, again, there's obviously a cost that comes with it, but to have an acting coach as well, I know people who do that. And even after drama school, like you are now, like it's really good just to keep it up. Because same thing, sorry, silly analogy, but with like driving, you pass your test and you think, yes, that's it. Yeah. But really it's only the start. And same thing with drama school. I know they're different, but it's the same kind of principle. Like you do your training and then you're qualified, you can call yourself a professional, you've got your degree or whatever, but it's only the start. You've got a whole big wide world out there. You haven't made it necessarily. I mean, we'll obviously talk about that, and what it means to be successful or whatever. But you can still go to a really good drama school and it can be really tough. So but yeah,
exactly. So let's talk about that. So then post drama studio.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened? Goodness me.
Because I think it's really interesting. I suppose, sorry to interrupt you there. I was speaking to Gareth too about he's had a really interesting career in that he's worked in ministry. He's also worked as an actor. Yeah. And I said to him, what is it like now kind of transitioning to this time where you're going back into the industry sort of thing? He's been working in ministry. Yeah. Now he's written a musical and he's acting. He's doing all the things. He's producing, and he said, well, it's kind of one and the same. My heart is still the same. It's to spread the word, spread the good news. And I think you've had a career so far that also really links the two together really nicely. So would you like to tell us a bit more?
Yeah. I mean, I think last year, so I was going to say, we obviously talk about testimony and stuff. I would say it kind of comes in two parts, where you kind of have this time in my life, probably university, where you kind of meet Jesus, and my faith grew slowly but surely over that time. But in the past year, more recently, that's when it really kind of grew exponentially. And like a big thing for me as part of that growth was working for my church for the year, down in across the city in West London, in Ealing. Been part of that church for over 2 years now. But it was fairly early on, actually, when I was at the church. I was at drama school at the time, and I was out for a pint with my pastor, as you do.
Love that.
Pete Cornford, big up. I'll give him a shout out. Why not?
And these people sponsor us.
And like he just talked about this thing called Impact Year, which is now called Intentional Discipleship, but same kind of thing, run by a group of churches called New Frontiers, which kind of have like Baptist roots, but they consider themselves like non-denominational. But yeah, kind of globally, they're kind of a global thing now, and they've really grown over the past like 20, 30,
I used
40
to go to New Frontiers
years.
Church.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
About this.
Yeah. So he, and incidentally, Anna Unwin, who's just been interviewed, did it a couple of years before me as well. So it was good to kind of have her insight into it.
And what's it called? Like what you did?
Well, we kind of know it at Redeemer at my church as Impact Year, but it's called Intentional Discipleship, or ID, because ID is about, well, obviously that's what Intentional Discipleship stands for, but finding your identity in Christ. Come on. So yeah, that was a big thing, and he just said, you know, we have this thing called Impact Year that we do as a church that is linked to the wider group of New Frontiers churches, where you kind of have, I guess, informal theology training. It's not Bible college, but you have teaching across the course of the year. You serve your local church. You have weekly teaching, Bible teaching. You go on like a mission trip. You have in-person teaching as well. You also just like, it's amazing. You just, you know, meet like-minded people, your kind of stage of life. I say your stage of life, I mean, you can be as young as 18, but I know people who have been older who've done it, but it was like, I think it really did change my life in a big way. I'm glad I did it. But I remember him saying to me at the time, we kind of wondered what would it look like if Henry did it. And initially at the time, I had the very similar reaction to Anna in that, you know, we're working in the same kind of field. And I, like her, was just sort of like, to be honest, Pete, I didn't say this to him, but in my heart, I was like, I just want to be successful and, you know, finish drama school and like just go out into the world and get an agent and be in shows. And I remember at drama school, they'd always ask, you know, you've got to pinpoint a particular part of the industry you want to work in to begin with and then branch out. That's the kind of thing, the kind of conversations you have to have with your agent. And for me, I mean, I love working across all mediums is great, but I prefer theatre. So I was like, you know what? If I work for the RSC, the National Theatre and or the Globe, I'll be happy. I mean, that isn't even that long ago, you know? That's what was going through my heart, going through my head. So that's how I was feeling. But
that's
then
how I'll achieve happiness and
then as time went on, I had just had conversations with people who'd done the Impact Year before, and prayed about it, I guess, thought about it, and obviously God led me to make the decision to do it, but I'm just so glad I did, because I guess you kind of go into these things, particularly like a year-long thing like that, and you're like, I don't really know what to expect. But now, like made friends for life, like, and like done that year with them, and just changed my life. And I think I wouldn't be the same person had I not done it. I'm not the same person. My spirit, I mean, like I say, I don't know, I probably got saved or properly became a follower of Jesus around 2021, so towards the end of uni. But I think it was over that year I really, really grew and just sort of found where my true identity was and gave it all to God, you know. Wow. So it was, and I honestly, like, to people listening, watching, like, I would, if you're at that point, it doesn't matter actually how old you are, but if you're at that point where you're like, you know what, I could take a year out, what am I going to do? What could I do? I honestly cannot recommend that internship enough. And don't just see it as like an internship, like, oh, it's a gap year. Yeah, it is, but it just changed me from the inside out. It was just unreal. Like, and just what I learned, the way in which I serve church, becoming such a core part of that church as well, and seeing things from the other side. You often go to church on a Sunday, worship, hear the preach, connect with people, do meet-up groups in the week. And then that's kind of it. And obviously you get stuck into serving and stuff at different ministries. But for me, seeing it from the other side, working in an office as well throughout the week, really just changed my whole perspective on it, what it looked like to properly kind of serve and, you know, give a year to God. Well, obviously we try and, as Christians, give as much time as give everything to God and do that every day. But for me, it was like intentionally putting that year aside to do that.
That time was kind of mapped out. And I think as well, with you being relatively new to, like, having given your life to Jesus, as you said, that being able to have that opportunity of a whole year of people pouring into you and being taught about God's teachings and putting it into practice. I think being able to put into practice what it is to follow Jesus, I think that is amazing. And I think it's probably really equipped you for what you're doing now as well. And so how did you get from what you were doing in that year to what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I kind of saw that year as, okay, God, I'm going to be really intentional with working for church. If I have acting opportunities to come along, cool. Actually, to begin with, my pastor even said to me, he was like, mate, if you get something that comes up, I think Anna got told the same thing. If you get something that comes up, if you get a big break opportunity, whatever, you can just leave. You can go off and do that. And that's what I thought of going into it. But as time went on, there's a verse which is quite helpful with this in the Psalms, where it's like, if you pursue God, if you love God wholeheartedly, he'll change the desires of your heart so they align more to his will. And that's kind of what happened. I was like, do you know what? Like, I had an agent at the time, and there were some auditions that I got put forward for that would have been, had I got them, pretty good, like a pretty big deal. There was even one thing where I got an opportunity to meet with a director, but it just would have clashed with so many things I was doing on my year. And I mean, I won't go into all of it, but there were also some things. It was the best year of my life, one of the best years of my life, and yeah, like just the way I changed in that year, but also one of the toughest years as well. Like, it wasn't all rosy, and I just had a hard time with. My agent was great, but just stuff I was being put forward for, and this is a conversation that a lot of Christians in the performing arts talk about, just being put forward for stuff that was compromising to my faith. And there was that attached to it as well. But I just prayed about it, and I just felt God saying, I just want you to commit to this year like properly and just see it out. And yeah, that wasn't the only thing. The agent was probably one of 3 things going on at the time in my personal life, where God kind of challenged me in a big way and was like, you can either follow me wholeheartedly, or you can have these things that the world offers. But guess what? You can't do both. And Jesus talks about that in relation to like money and stuff, because that's a big kind of idol that we have. And he says you can't serve 2 masters. You can't love both God and money. And it wasn't specifically money, but it was like other things going on in my personal life. It was a relationship. It was my family, and it was career. And those 3 things, certainly from my point of view and from other people I've spoken to, the enemy will try and use those things to distract you, to go against what God wants. And it was a real spiritual battle. And I'm not going to lie, it was probably one of the trickiest points of my life, and one of the lowest points of my life. But yeah, it was really when kind of like we all get to a point where we're like, do you know what does it really mean to follow Jesus? What does it mean not just to show an interest in Jesus and a curiosity and to call yourself a believer or call yourself a Christian, but what does it actually look like to deny yourself and to lay down everything at the cross? And I would say, if you can't pinpoint somewhere in your life where it's cost you to follow Jesus, you might, it sounds quite extreme, but like, I would maybe question whether you are following him, because there will be something in your life before you give your life to Christ that you have to cut away, that you have to lay down in order to follow him. And I think that I got to that point where God really challenged me with that. And hey, God has a great plan for my life, for your life, for everyone's life, but we also have free will, and I did put it off. I put off what he was telling me to do, but it was very painful. But there were things there that I've just spoken about that I laid aside, and just so I could really follow him wholeheartedly. And it doesn't mean to say that God never wants those kind of blessings, but it's like, was it honoring to him, and just was it right, was it according to his will? Obviously, like, prayer is your biggest is your biggest weapon and like friend to have, and just the Holy Spirit as well, like Holy Spirit conviction, that voice which is convicting you about specific things going on, and you just have to you do just have to listen.
And I think it's what's so important to remember is you're not doing it from a perspective of like, I like, if you've listened to Anna's interview, it's not about doing it to be good, to be a good Christian, to do the right thing. It's like, I always think whenever God leads us to kind of be corrected in some way, or to lay something down, as you said, and it can be really difficult, but I always think it's because he's a loving father. Like, he doesn't want to do anything to restrict our fun. He doesn't want to give us a hard time at all. He wants us to live life to the fullest. So he wants us to give us the best life we can, like, to have in fullness. That doesn't mean that life is without its struggles, but it does mean that if he is asking us to stop something, I always think of it as the same as a loving parent would say to their child, don't touch that, it's hot. And it's not because the parent wants to restrict their child, but it's because they know what's best for the child. Absolutely. They know that that's going to cause harm, whereas I've got something better that's going to be a good thing. And I just think it's so powerful to remember that. It's the character of God when you know that you're being corrected in something, is to remember his character, that he only ever does anything in our best interest. And I think that's how you get rid of the negativity of religion a little bit as well, because religion and rule following isn't what we're called to. It's freedom in Christ, and how that looks. And I think that's so cool. And also, like what we'd spoken about with Anna, is that sometimes it's not even that the thing itself is wrong, because I think sometimes people could get stuck in the religion of what's right and wrong, and I've definitely struggled with that. But it's like, where is your heart behind it? And like, in those situations, you realize that you needed to put those things down because your heart wasn't in line with God's heart. Maybe
is it bringing you closer to God, or is it pulling you away?
And like with Anna's story, she spoke about how the West End and pursuing that was something that was really important to her, but her heart wasn't in the right place. And once her heart was, she ended up in the West End, and it was a different experience to what it would have been. So,
and you don't always know, what it's easier to see this stuff in retrospect, but you don't always know. It doesn't, what God wants us to do, it doesn't always make sense to us in the moment. But now you look back on it and you think, wow, like you say, the Genesis 50, verse 20 verse where, Joseph is being sold into slavery by his brothers, and he says, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. And I always go back to that, to just apply that to, God
can take anything. He doesn't cause harm, but he can use anything for our good. And so what there's some good things that have been happening recently. Because I remember when we were doing the tour in June, I was like, what's next, bro? And you wasn't sure at that point.
Was I?
And then I think it was just a few weeks later, something happened. What happened?
Well, really, I mean, I'm not going to lie, but I've probably got the person sitting across the table from me to thank for one of the things, I guess, in a way. But no, did that tour, finished working for the church, and then maybe it was sort of July, August or something. But Simon, who I work with now, artistic director of a Christian theatre company called Salt Mine, they had a role coming up for a theatre and education tour. They've been doing for the past 10 years or so, called Switch Up. It tackles knife crime, county lines, gang culture, drug use, things like that we take into secondary schools, mainly in the West Midlands, because we've had a lot of support from the West Midlands Police for that. So there was an opportunity coming up with that, and you put me in touch with them regarding it. I think Simon was gonna, because obviously he'd helped with like the stage management side for the first ever show.
So was that when Dudley. You first met him?
That's when I first met him in that rehearsal week, because me and Richard and myself stayed at their house.
Oh yes, of course. And
it's funny because Simon tells me now, he didn't obviously tell me at the time, but he tells me now, he was just sort of, me being there, he was like, I wonder if that guy would like to work for Salt Mine one day.
Wow.
And in my heart, like talking about it to them and like other Christian theatre companies, because like Richard's worked for other Christian theatre companies, and I was just like, I really would like to do that. But I didn't say anything. And then when I got in touch with Simon off the back of you letting me know about it, he said, I was going to contact you anyway. So so it's really off the back of it as well that the Salt Mine opportunity came up. And since then I've been working for them as a freelance actor since September. Did the Switch Up tour in the autumn, then did a Christmas tour. this is the thing with Christmas, you start rehearsing at the very beginning of November.
Yeah.
So the mince pies were out and the Christmas music was playing from the second.
Love
that. But yeah, so did that.
That was a Christmas Carol.
It was, yeah, for November and December.
And I saw Christmas Carol.
You did.
And I loved it.
Probably, I'm not going to lie,
good.
Probably my favourite venue, Church Dunstable. Massive.
It was
massive
a brilliant,
audience.
brilliant production, and you were so good in it. I was like, go on, Henry. I
think I really enjoyed like taking a well-known Christmas story by Dickens.
Good old Dickens.
I don't know what his heart was behind it in terms of getting the gospel message across, but the way in which it'd been adapted for Salt Mine and just getting that gospel message, because Salt Mine will try to in some way have a message, a gospel-centered message running through each of its shows, and it will make some more kind of direct than others, but this was about, what can we give, not just our money but also like our time to others, what can we give in terms of like our heart. And you kind of see the character arc of Scrooge, how he changes as an individual, being shown his past, shown the present, and obviously shown the future as well. And he does at the end get on his knees and just say, please God, like I know I deserve death, but I don't want to go there. I'm willing to change. And that's what the Christian life kind of looks like. And like we were talking about, sometimes you just have to get to that lowest point in order for God to reveal the sin in your life. Same thing with like Adam and Eve, like they didn't to begin with, and then their eyes were opened. You got to get to that low point, and then suddenly that's what's needed for you to then be changed, to be transformed. It's the same with Jesus when he died on the cross. He went to that low point, but then he rose again, and that models what the Christian walk. Obviously, it peaks and troughs, and we have good days and bad days. It doesn't necessarily get completely better, but that's what the kind of arc of our faith looks like. But yeah, just doing that show was great with Salt Mine, and I was just so blessed to be a part of it. And now, I'm about to do a primary school show on internet safety called Blast Off, which will be really fun. And yeah, there may be other opportunities coming up with other projects they're doing. So I'm just really blessed. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like we all know people, who are listening to this, actors, we know it's a really tough industry out there. Really? And I'm not going to lie, like we would have felt this, whether you've done drama school or not. You get to that point where you're like, right, I'm ready to go out into the world of work. But it's like, when is my next audition? When is my next job coming? And I've just been so lucky with what God has done. And I got to that point where I kind of submitted to him to the point where I was like, Lord, I've done this here with church. You know what? If you don't want me to go off and do this acting thing, I left my agent. I took a bit of a break from that. I was like, if you don't want me to go and do this, fair enough. And I'll tell you now, with Gareth's Street Ministry, K180, they actually offered me a position assisting him. And that was tough because I was like, wow, like what an opportunity. But then I was like, do I want to leave my home church? I really felt like God had grown me a lot in evangelism and street evangelism and like working with Gareth and my other mates, Josh and Sam, doing stuff within church,
just like sharing Jesus with
and
people.
Like, I mean, I love talking to people anyway, but I'm really passionate about, I think particularly when you have quite a radical change in your life, where you get saved and you give your life to the Lord and stuff. I think, you're just you cannot, like it says in scripture, like you just cannot help. The disciples in Acts 4, they could not help telling others what they'd seen and heard, even if they were going to get flogged for it. And
killed.
We're so killed, and we're so blessed in this part of the world in the UK to be able to freely like worship and share our faith. Of course, a lot of people won't like it, but it's just something I feel really kind of led to do. And when Paul talks about like the Ephesians 4 ministries, I'm like, I just love talking to people about Jesus and evangelizing. So that's been like, a big part of me wanting to both, make my faith a big part of what I do in terms of work, but also do the acting stuff. And I don't know how long that will last for. I really love what I'm doing with Salt Mine at the moment, but just to, even for a few years, I was like, God, how can I combine the two things? And I think there are people who are in the secular. I don't want to make too much of a distinction or a separation between like the secular and the sacred and stuff, but there are people who work in the secular world who, we can still in some way witness. But I think for me, like just being around Christians, again, don't know if I will do forever, but just in my workplace, and then like going out to like schools, to churches, even to like audiences who aren't who aren't believers. Like, it's just such a
to take that message to them, and to have the combination, and that is such a blessing. And I've had things before as well where it's just, I've thought, it'd be so good to combine my faith with what I love, with performance. And even when I came to see you in A Christmas Carol, the message was, what can I give? And that's like one of my favourite Christmas carols too, in the bleak midwinter. It says, what can I give him, poor as I am, give him my heart. I love those lyrics. And it just really spoke to me, because I was like, it is such a blessing that God has given us these gifts of creativity to act, sing, dance, whatever it is, to be able to then use that back as a gift to other people. And it just really like reminds me of the weight that has, of like, this is really special that we can do that. It's such a privilege. And I think what you're doing with Salt Mine and with it as well is doing like really high quality work, really high quality theatre, but it's got such a powerful message. It's people coming to be entertained and are going to have a great evening out, a great day watching a show, but it goes deeper than that, which is just so exciting. And I love that. And I'd love for you to be able to tell us now maybe about what it is that makes you want to share Jesus so much. What impacted Jesus? What's the testimony, bro?
Wow, we got to that point. I knew it was coming. So I think for me, it's a bit of a weird one, because we usually with our testimonies start off by saying, I grew up in a Christian household, or I didn't grow up in a Christian household.
That's so true.
For me, it's like, I kind of did and didn't. I would say, so basically my parents, they believe in God. That's never been an issue for me. Like, I've always believed in God. I've believed in God for as long as I can remember. But have I been a Christian for the whole time, or no? Brought up in the Church of England, my dad in the Baptist church, and I keep praying that they would commit their lives to Jesus, to see him as, because the thing is, like, they do believe in Jesus, but do they really know who he is? Do they know the impact that he can have on their lives? Are they active followers? And I just pray, I think they're mellowing to it and like kind of seeing what I'm doing. I think that's, in a way, obviously it's nothing, I didn't take any credit, but like God's trying to work in them that way. But yeah, kind of grew up with that loose belief of God and Jesus, but I guess fell into the trap of just seeing that different, and obviously I respect all religions and faiths and beliefs and stuff, but like just seeing anything really as, if whatever your heart says, then that's true and that's fine. You can believe whatever you want, and if it makes you happy and if you're content with that, then cool. And then so because I would consider myself growing up to be quite a spiritual person, so the idea of God and stuff, and just sort of thought, well, all these faiths, I'm a Christian, but all these things are basically saying and pointing towards the same thing. And it took me a long while to get out of that way of thinking. But yeah, for me, I mean, I had, when I was about 14, I had like next door neighbors who happened to be Christians. And we just went around to like their housewarming one time, and they just invited me along to their like Friday youth group up the road, which they co-led. So that was a big thing. That was a more kind of, okay, I'm actively taking time out of my week, even as like a teenager after school or whatever on a Friday evening, to just like basically just connect with people my age and play games and whatever, but like, and like hang out, but have this gospel message, which slowly but surely I kind of understood a bit more. But it's, again, I wouldn't have called myself a Christian then. And then, I think it kind of changed a lot. I was at sixth form, went to the Christian Union then, because I was sort of at this point where I was fence sitting a bit. I was like, I'm a Christian. And then I kind of saw that the other guys they just had something that I didn't. I remember doing actually a UCAS. UCAS is like oversees like a lot of the unis and colleges and conservatoires and stuff. Went on like a UCAS convention day where we looked at unis. And the guy just happened to sit next to on the coach had a Bible. I was like, wow, like, like I wasn't, I mean, I didn't, I don't really think I was reading the Bible or anything at that time, but I just showed curiosity. I showed interest. It didn't feel too jarring. I was like, cool, this guy's got a Bible. And he was like, hopefully he was telling me about his hopes to do like theology one day. I was like, that's cool. And I had a convo with him. And then lo and behold, when I got to uni, he went to the same uni, and he happened to say to me, I'm going to the CU, I'm going to the Christian Union, like first meeting of the year, want to come? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a Christian, of course. And then I get there and like everyone's worshipping and lifting their hands in worship and stuff and like, crying out to the Lord. I'm like, okay, this is a bit, I'm not going to lie, in my heart I was like, I'm a bit weirded out here. Like, if I'm being completely honest. And then, yeah, just like heard a lot of the messages that were being like spoken on and stuff, and hearing about Jesus like all the time. And I'm like, okay, wow, that they really do love this
dude.
Yeah, because like I thought I knew Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, you've got to have to ask yourself, do you know of Jesus, or do you know of God, or do you know him? And I know, that's in italics. I'm emphasizing that. Yeah. Do you know him? And I didn't know him, and so I don't really know when I fully committed my life. But I remember like walking into it, because this was a time in my life where I was like starting to go to church more, because CU were like, we're CU and it's good to come to CU in the week, but we're not church. We're not a substitute for church, so go to a church on Sunday. So I did kind of on and off like go to church at home, but like not really, like I wouldn't have really called it like a home church or anything. So I went to, at the time, I went to an Anglican church, and because it was just what I was used to, and I walked in and the vicar, I just spoke to him, got to know him, and he said to me, a few years later, he was like, when you first walked into church, don't think you're a Christian, but when you left like 3-4 years later, you definitely were. So I don't know when it happened, but it was at some point in that time. And I think, the age of kind of 19, 20, 21, that's a really kind of that's a key point for a lot of people, where they're like, they kind of make this decision: am I actually going to follow Jesus wholeheartedly? Am I going to make him Lord of my life? And so there was that. That was the point where I guess I started to have like difficult conversations with my parents just about, like what I believed in and stuff. And my mum was quite into like the spiritualist church. So, kind of, again, a bit more in unquote, unquote, like holistic in its kind of views of who God is, stuff like mediums and like channeling and stuff. And at the time, I would go because I was like, this is my mum, like I love her and stuff. I'm going to go with her. And at the time I had some issues like my mental health, and I was like depressed and stuff. And, like went along with her and at the time I was like, all this stuff I'm getting from the spiritualist church, this feels like maybe it's like actually quite fulfilling. Maybe this is the answer. Maybe this is the answer to all of my problems. And over time, they would have like the cross at the front, and they'd have like a picture of Jesus at the side. And over time, I went there for a little while, and they'd like take that stuff down, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe Jesus is like, a part of this, but maybe he's not like front and center. But then I got to a point, I think it was in my second year at uni, and I was with one of the ministers at the church, and I was just talking about this spiritualist church I was going to and kind of being involved in that, but also with the CU. And with my Christian faith, and he was like, look, I don't think you can do one or the other, but you can't do both. I was like, wow. And then that was before the holidays, and then it was like, I think there was a few weeks I had off after the holidays. Came back to him, I was like, I've decided to choose Jesus. So I find it hard to pinpoint, but I think that was quite a key moment.
Would you say since having that point, you thought maybe going to this spiritualist church might have been the answer to your problems, and then have you found since that wasn't the answer? What was the answer for you?
Well, I mean, it's a long time ago now. I was like in my teens and stuff, but I found, I guess, and here's the key. I think coming towards the end of my time at Birmingham, I found that I was talking about my faith in Jesus more to people. I was at that point where I felt, as we all do, felt quite apprehensive and nervous and a bit awkward doing it, but I was doing that. And it was this thing of like, stuff that's gone on growing up and stuff, having my eyes open to sin and seeing myself as a sinner. I remember overhearing a minister saying to someone, they were just having a conversation with someone, and they were like, look, if you want to follow Jesus, you have to just say, look, Lord, I'm a sinner and I need you to save me. And I was like, oh no, that's such a, because I was having issues with my mental health at the time. I was like, no, that's such a negative way of thinking. I can't, no, I've got to manifest good thoughts, good, happy, positive thoughts. That's no, can't do that. But actually, that's the key. And I think with my, people who haven't quite made that decision to follow Jesus, seeing my own sin, my own brokenness, getting to that low point, and that being God's way of being like, look, you can't do this on your own. And Jesus going, look, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. No one comes to the Father except me. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. Like, you know, he is the image of the invisible God. Actually seeing Jesus as God, like that was the key. Like, because I think I got this idea of Jesus being like the way a lot of people in our culture see him, as just like a prophet, a good teacher. Okay, yeah.
Yes, man.
Good guy, died on the cross, but we don't really know why. Don't really see him as a sacrifice. Don't really see that as how it fits into God's plan. And that being able to get rid of this idea that Christianity's like all of the other religions, and the fact that it's not like the other religions. It's not. I might even go as far as to say it's not even a religion. It's faith. It's a relationship in God, because there are certain like foundations and rules God lays down to, like you say, discipline us and protect us. But it's not just following a rule book. It's walking in step with the Holy Spirit. It's following Jesus and allowing him to change you. The thing is, he never sinned. We all sin. We all fall short, as it says in Romans, as Paul says, we all fall short of the glory of God. That's the first thing. That's the thing that we need to get into our head. And that was, for me, the thing which meant that I came to Christ, because I was like, yeah, I'm a sinner, and I need who needs saving.
I think possibly like a lot of people are scared of the word sin, which I understand, because you instantly, I think it's a word for some people that maybe instantly makes you feel guilty, and that's uncomfortable, and nobody wants to feel guilty and condemned, you know. But I think the thing is, I feel like we need to change our view of the perception of the word sin. It's a bit like, you know, the S word, sin. Oh my gosh. But the thing is,
it sounds quite archaic, doesn't it? Like,
like, I don't know, like, I think the word itself, if you rephrased it to say, look, has anyone made a mistake before? Yes. Has anyone made a mistake today? Probably. Everybody, whether you're like somebody who's never been in a church or whether you're someone who's grown up in the church, is there anyone, you know, Jesus said when people were condemning this woman, saying, he said to them, whoever is without sin, like, can throw the first stone to stone this lady. And of course no one could, because everybody, without Jesus, everyone is guilty. And like, but that's not something we have to stay in guilt about. It's okay, helplessly I make mistakes, and I can't be perfect. I can't prevent myself from ever making a mistake. What's the solution here? And like what you're saying, a lot of religions offer, okay, well, you can try and do X, Y, and Z to be a good person and to reach your goal, whether that's heaven or something else. But for us, we realize, where do you draw the line? We can't do enough. So Jesus died to take our place and to be an offering for us. So we don't have to stay in the guilt. You know, we're free. We're not condemned. God doesn't condemn us. And I think that's how you move away as well from religion and rule following, because it's like, no, we're set free, and we're set free to live a life of freedom, which then goes back to what we said about, then we might not do certain things because that's not walking in freedom, but it's not from a place of guilt, which I think is so important, because speaking to non-believers especially, I almost shy away from the word sin, but it's because of the connotations it has. But it's actually something that's so beautiful, that God forgives us so freely. You know? There's nothing we have to do to earn it.
And you don't want to judge people, do you? You don't want to, and it's
called to not judge people.
Exactly. And it's like, you want people to get to a point where they see that they need God, they need Jesus. But ultimately, kind of what we're doing now, by giving your testimony and saying, look, I've got a problem. I'm not perfect. I might sound prideful in saying, you must, you know, follow Jesus and I'm right in what I think. But the reality is, I'm not right because of what Henry Silk/Henry Leigh-Hunt says. I'm right because Jesus is right, you know, and I've decided to submit everything I thought that was true about the world, or every philosophy or idea that I thought was the answer. And I've said, you know what, God, I've got to this low point where I know I need you, and I've seen that you are real. I've seen you for who you are. And I haven't just made up a version of who I think you are. And that's why a lot, you know, what we do is so rooted in scripture, because it's the only, obviously we can have our own experiences and stuff and encounter God in so many different ways, but the only reliable kind of source data for who God is, and its historical, true, real evidence, is the Bible itself, you know, written over, 1,500 years or whatever, by different people and so many different forms of writing. But ultimately, the main kind of architect or designer for that is God himself, working through people, and he works through us. And that's what he's commissioned us to do now as the church, to be bringers of light. And like, that's what I or others may do on the streets, talking to people. That's what we may do through the shows we're doing. That's ultimately what we want to do. And we don't want to judge or condemn people. We just want them to know that, you know, that they ultimately, everyone needs Jesus.
We all need him.
Everyone
and we're
needs
also
Jesus.
loved by him.
We're loved by him. We don't deserve it through anything we've done, and we can't earn it. All we've got to do, you don't actually have to do anything. All you do have to do is just get on your knees and say, you know, like Paul says, you know, if you confess with your mouth that Christ Jesus is Lord, and you believe that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. If you believe that in your heart, if you say, God, I want to see that you're real, and I want to know who you are, Jesus, he'll allow that to happen, you know, if it's according to his will, which obviously, because he wants people to know him. He wants to save people.
And he makes it so simple.
Yeah.
You know, we can just call on him to be forgiven.
Yeah.
Say we're sorry. Say we want to follow you.
Yeah. And he'll want us to live according to the Spirit, to walk in peace and love, and to show that fruit of the Spirit: peace, love, joy, gentleness, patience, self-control, all of those things. But doing those things won't save us. God's already done the work.
By dying on the cross.
Everything that you've done in your past, everything that you're maybe living in now, everything that you will do in the future, you know, that's all that got nailed to the cross 2,000 years ago.
That's because, you know, that's what we believe. We're preaching here,
Yeah.
but we believe that Jesus died on the cross, not just because he was killed by the Romans, but he chose to do that so that we wouldn't have to be punished.
Yeah.
He was punished, and he rose back to life to show he defeated
and
death.
he knew that he needed to do it. But Jesus got tempted to not do that. But he got to a point, I mean, he was, quite graphic, but he was sweating blood. Like, he was going through so much in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was about to be handed over to be crucified. And he was like, yet not what I will, Father, but what you will. And he was that's what it looks like to submit to God. And it can be so painful. And that, you know, what I've been through, what any of us have been through with our testimonies is nothing compared to that. But the hard times, the low points we've been through is kind of a reflection of that, of just giving it all to God. And and he's got a plan for my life, for your life, for everyone's life. But you've just got to take that step in giving it all to him.
Yeah. And that's what makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
And I can't believe it, but it is time for us to end.
Oh, what? I was only just warming up.
Really?
Oh, no. Is that it? Oh, my goodness.
I think, Henry, I'm sorry, there might have to be a part 2.
Oh. Do you know what? That's no bad thing. I'm looking forward to it, you know.
Yeah.
It's just such an amazing, such a blessing to be in this space. Like, I was just, when the other interview was going on, we've got Barbara Streisand on the wall, we've got Gene Kelly, we've got Frank Sinatra.
We've got some signed photos here.
We've got some diehard Hammers fans. We've got Bobby Moore at the other end of the room. We've got...
we've diverted.
We've got like Carlos Tevez.
He's just
really
Henry's having a great time.
This is unbelievable. I didn't realize Michael Caine. Yeah, I didn't realize that West Ham used to be sponsored by Doc Martens. That's mad.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it's great.
Well, that does give us the opportunity, because I thought, oh no, we're not going to get to do our name drops, but there's somebody on this wall that you have a connection to, isn't there?
Well, yeah. Well,
maybe a few people.
Not me personally, but yeah, my where I get my Leigh-Hunt surname from. Well, it's my mum. First and foremost, it's my mum's maiden name. But her dad, my grandfather, was an actor, and was in Funny Girl
with Babs,
with Babs herself, with Babs herself. So I saw that. Oh, look at that! You've got it signed
Barbra
and everything.
Streisand. So your granddad worked with Barbra Streisand.
He did indeed.
That is so cool.
Indeed.
I mean, my mum is going to be fangirling right now. We are going to have to wrap up, sadly. Everyone's going to want to come with us now to chat to my mum about Barbra Streisand. But is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, wow.
I mean, also, I feel like we didn't get into so much, but you were saying about how, you know, your life was changed from God, you know, like that you was one way and now you're another, and God's transformed your life. And is there anything more you'd like to say on that?
I'll try and be as to the point as possible, but I just remember a few years ago, my great aunt big up Auntie Joyce. She's actually the same age as the Queen would have been, 97. She's amazing. She's one of the few born again believers in my family. I can have really open, frank discussions with her about how my life's going and talk to her openly about faith and stuff. And I just remember her, because we often email. We speak over the phone, but we often email as well. I just remember her emailing me one time when I was at uni, and I wouldn't have considered myself a Christian then. I wasn't fully I wasn't a committed Christ follower, but I just remember her saying to me, even when you do choose to follow Jesus, you'll never regret it. And at the time I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Now I look back on it and think, wow, she was so right, and I thank God for people like her. The way in which God used her to kind of help me and to give me that assurance and to give me that true hope that we can find in the Lord.
Represent.
Isaiah 40:31. So yeah, praise God for that. But yeah, you just look back on moments like that and you think, wow, thank you, Lord. And yeah, I'd say the same to anyone. You'll never regret it if you choose to follow Jesus. It won't be easy at all, but God does have a plan, and He just wants to be in a relationship with you and to know you. And yeah, I just urge you to do that and to put your identity in what's most important, to just put God front and center. You'll never regret it.
Yeah, you'll never regret it. And even if it's hard, sometimes it's not as hard as being without Him.
Absolutely. That's a good thing to remember as well. Come on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Henry.
No worries at all, sis. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on the pod. I was like, what's he looking at then?
Still rolling.
It's been so good having you here. Thank you so much. And I think now we should celebrate with a cup of tea.
Let's do it.
And,
my third cup of tea of the day. Come on.
Woo! I've converted him. Not really me,
many hot beverages have been had.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening / watching. Goodbye from me and Henry.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope that it's been a blessing to you, and my prayer is that you will know there is so much hope for you. So hold on to that hope. I do have a list of mental health resources in the description of this episode, so please do make use of this if you think it might be something that benefits you or someone that you know. Please do share it with them. Also, I'd love if you could support me as I spread the word of this podcast by subscribing, liking and commenting on YouTube, and by leaving a rating and a review on Spotify, and also engaging with me through the Q&A section. This would really help me to spread the word and to spread the hope. I'll see you next Monday for another episode. Thank you so much once again. God bless you all. Bye.